The opportunity came for missionaries in our church. We're looking for some people to come and do a mission trip in Vanuatu. Most people don't know where Vanuatu is. Yes, I know, but Survivor made Vanuatu very popular. Beautiful, beautiful place. But I remember we went there and we prayer walked the island. We were supportive of the ministry they were doing, and it just changed my life. I thought, this is incredible. I came home with a new energy and a new thinking about maybe there's more to life than just going to work 5 days a week, coming home, looking forward to weekend, coming home, and and it changed my life. I read a couple books, missionary books, that actually impacted me, and Vanuatu changed my life. I was born in 1951 to my mother, Eleanor and Paul Schaefer. I was the last of 3 children. My mother wanted to stop with the 2 boys, and my dad really wanted a girl, and there I came along. And I was a daddy's girl. I can remember dancing when I was little on his feet. We would dance around the house and I would stand on his feet, and I was his little princess. My dad had a machine shop. He was a machinist, and actually my mom worked in his machine shop with him. It was a little mom and pop machine shop in Paramount, and they worked well together. And after they got married, my mom felt like there was a need, that she needed something, and she went to this little tiny storefront church on North Long Beach Boulevard, and that's where they planted themselves and were very active, and that's where they stayed. I adored my mother and dad. I mean, I really did. I mean, they were good people, and it's because of my mother that I believe the work that we're doing now is all because of what I know she started many years ago.
With her deep-rooted faith and involvement with the church, Sherry Roberts was destined to follow in her parents' footsteps.
In 1966, my mother was watching the Rose Parade, and there was some horses that came by, and they had silver saddles, silver ornaments on their horses, and the announcer said, $50,000 worth of silver, and this was in 1966. And my mother said she threw up her hands and she went, "Oh my goodness, how many churches could we build for $50,000? And she said at that moment she felt God spoke to her, and he told my mother that she was going to be instrumental in building churches all throughout the world.
And a new mission was manifested. Sherry's mother decided right there and then to create as many churches as possible.
My mom, she would even do things like swim-a-thons. My mother was a big lady like myself, and her last swim-a-thon was at age 78. She made the cover of the Press Telegram in Long Beach. And people would come and they would pledge money, and her last swim she raised $10,000 to build a well in El Salvador. So besides the churches they built several wells, they built pastor parsonages, even orphanages.
168 churches were built all over the world, including Haiti, China, Uganda, and so many more. Sherry saw her parents' hard work firsthand.
When my mother was building these churches, I will say I was resentful because I didn't get the name brand clothing, I didn't get the nicer things, and I was resentful because I actually thought, my mother, here she is taking what little money we had from a tiny little machine shop, mom and pop business, and she was so determined to build these churches all over the world.
Sherry married right out of high school. She describes the first couple of years as the honeymoon stages. But the marriage didn't turn out how she would have hoped.
I remember it was quite shocking because we were the only couple on both sides of our family, anybody we knew that had ever divorced. And this was many, many years ago when divorce wasn't common, so I was feeling not only shocked by the whole thing, but we were also the odd people out by, having a divorce.
And with 3 kids, Sherry found herself a single mom juggling multiple jobs to support her family, and eventually back to the place she had abandoned.
It's always when you're down and out, when you have nowhere else to go, you've just got to look up. It was tough. For 3 years I raised them on my own with no support, nothing. And I learned to be very independent. So I had many jobs. I worked early morning daycare. I had a part-time job at a church. I went to, I did ironing, I did cleaning houses. I had gone to school for 2 years to learn how to do cake decorating. I had many jobs.
She worked at a local church doing administrative work, and it wasn't long before someone caught her eye.
When he was discipling with the local pastor, the pastor said, well, why don't you, date the secretary out there? And he goes, oh, she's got 2 kids. And he goes, well, she's got 3, but that shouldn't matter. So anyway.
And it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Ken Roberts was a musician in a Christian band and worked as a sound engineer at Disney. And he was also very involved in the church. The two fell in love and married in 1979. And 5 years later, they added to their family with a baby boy of their own.
I really wanted them to have a Christian upbringing that I had, solid teaching. I knew what they were being taught at school. I wasn't concerned about them being taught things that we didn't believe.
But it wasn't too long before there was another child for Sherry to take care of.
I went to this Christian conference up in Los Angeles, and the World Vision was there. And they had all these tables, the table spread out with little children that needed to be sponsored. And I remember looking at all these children and I'm going, I think I'll sponsor one of these kids, And the whole day they had people come up and say, I was actually able to go visit my sponsored child, and it was such a change, what a change in my life getting to meet them. And I thought, oh, I would like to do that. So I picked up a little girl, and I remember she had this frown. It was an upside down frown. I mean, she just looked so pathetic, so sad. But I picked her because my husband actually naturally has a frown. When he's not smiling, his face goes down. Everybody always thinks he's mad or upset, but that's just the way his mouth goes. So I thought, I'm going to pick her because she does look like my husband.
From that point on, Sherry received letters and photos from Restituta, a young girl from Uganda. But she would soon find out there was more in store.
There was this singing group from Uganda, East Africa, a male singing group. They were in their late 20s and 30s, and they had started touring. They were going to be in the United States for a year, and they started on the East Coast, and they would come across, and they came all the way to the West Coast.
The group went by First Love, and Sherry felt there was a bigger reason why they landed at her church's footsteps.
And when they came here, our friends called us up and said, these guys would like to build a recording studio in Uganda. You want to come over and talk to them? So my husband did. He got to know them. They talked for off and on 3 days, and he did a demo tape with them and everything. And at the end of the 3 days, they said to him, we think you're the person that's supposed to come to Uganda and help us build a recording studio.
And in February of 2004, Ken and Sherry packed their bags and took their first trip to Uganda. And the capital of Kampala was their new home for the next 2 weeks.
And while we were in Uganda, the singing group, they were taking us to the nice restaurants, the nicest places. I mean, they were keeping us away from what I would call Uganda. I mean, I would call the majority of how Ugandans live. And I remember they were building the studio. He was finishing the inside. They were soundproofing it. And I decided to take a walk. Once we got into the villages and saw, how people live, and, no electricity, a lot of them no electricity, having to walk a couple miles to go to get water to pump from a well. It brings the Bible. Actually, to me, being in the outskirts of a city, I feel like I'm living in the Bible times. You hear about people washing, the Bible talks about washing the dust off your feet. Well, there's dust everywhere on these red dirt roads, and so before they go in, they make sure their feet are clean, and the goats and the animals and the sheep, and going to the well and getting your water. And it's just, you could turn back the clock 2,000 years ago and you wouldn't even know it was 2017 when you're in a village.
And it was also during her travel that she met the young girl she sponsored.
And then they brought out Restituta, and all these children, their eyes were like this, just, who's this white lady coming to see Restituta? And Restituta was a very shy, withdrawn little girl. And I remember, hugging her, and then I would sing a few songs with the kids. And so then we went to her home, and they had prepared us a traditional Ugandan dinner, and it was just amazing. I mean, I was immersed in this African culture, and I decided to take a walk. Over there, all houses have compounds. You're always there's always a gate around your house, and I remember saying, I'm going to go out, and I'm just going to go see who's out on the streets in the neighborhood and what I could find. And so I remember I had a few little rubber balls and some candy, and so I walked out, and of course all the Ugandan children, they see you and they run up to you and they want to touch your skin or touch your hair, and just to see somebody that's different than them. And I remember I met two girls, and these two girls actually changed my life forever. They told me of a story about when they were 9 and 11. At this time now they're 12 and 14 when I'm talking to them. But at ages 9 and 11, they had been kidnapped in the middle of the night, watched their father be hacked to death in front of them, and their mother being attacked and probably more than likely raped. They never used those words. And the entire village burned to the ground. And they were taken into captivity at ages 9 and 11. And I remember hearing this story, and I'm like, I've never heard of anything like this. Well, it's the story of the rebels, Joseph Kony, which was very popular in 2012, the movement. It's the story of how the rebels came in and just kidnapped children and forcibly put the boys into the army with their guns, and the young girls were used as sex slaves. And they talked about how they told me their story of what happened to them. And I remember I was just I'm in awe. I've never heard anything like this. I didn't know these kind of things happened in the other places of the world.
Sherry left Uganda with a heavy heart, but an intense passion to help those she had met. When we come back, find out how Sherry took an entire village under her wing. Sherry Roberts believes everything happens for a reason. She was touched by the stories, the culture, and by the people of Uganda. And now it was her turn to leave a mark on them.
I started thinking, there's no reason why children should be abused in such a horribly way. And I thought, I'm going to put these two girls and pay their education. I'm going to put them in a school, and that will be it. Nobody there knows about homeschooling, but I thought I'll hire a teacher and I'll just find a place and we'll just buy materials and we'll just educate them that way. But in the meantime, there was this little Sudanese family just outside of the guest house. And this little Sudanese family had some children that were not going to school because public education at that time was not free. And so they had these children, and I thought, well, I can take those three children, even though they were like 7, 12, and 16, different ages. Everybody was different ages, but I will take them and I'll educate 5 children. I'll do my good deed and I'll educate 5 children. And I remember going up to the local pastor and asking him, can I have a corner of your room, if I can pay rent if you want me to? And he said, no, that's okay. We got all the school materials. I found somebody to teach them. And the first question they asked us is, well, what uniforms are we going to wear? And I'm saying, there's only 5 of you. It's a homeschool, but we must have uniforms. So Ken was working at Disney, and so we ended up buying surfing Minnie Mickey shirts and dresses for them. So they had these powder blue surfing dresses and shirts for their uniforms. They looked really cute. What started out with 5 children being homeschooled is now we're officially a school, New Creation Center. I like it because now the Bible verse talks about us new creatures in Christ. The old is past and the new. And so these are children who the old is past and now they have a brand new start. They're new creations. At that time, we had bought land outside of the capital city, about an hour's north of the city. When we built the land, we decided we would slowly close down the school in the city and eventually build a school for the village children. And so what we did was we stopped bringing new children in, but we kept the grades going, and then slowly but surely it got to where there was only 4 grades and 3 grades and 2, and then it was the last grade. So we did it that way. And in February of 2017, that school was shut down a year ago, and then we opened a brand new school.
And it's the same name of the...
Yes, we kept it New Creation Center, but we call it New Creation Center Graceland. Graceland is our land that we live on. It's our 11 acres. When Ken and I were trying to figure out a name, we wanted to have a name for it, we were coming up with all these names, and I jokingly said Graceland. Being a musician, he took to it, but I look at it as God's grace on us. He poured his grace on us, so it's our Graceland. So no, it's not in Memphis. And the king does, and Elvis doesn't live there, but the true king does live there. So we provide them with everything. We run it as a co-op, and what we do is we ask a member of the family, be it the mother or older brother or somebody in the family, to come and volunteer to either help clean the classrooms for a week, or come and help wash up and help with the meals for their breakfast and lunch, wash up. So, and it's actually worked very well. I didn't know how it was going to work, but they know that if they want to keep their kids in the school, this is how it's run, and they want their children so desperately to get a good education, so they run it. So our first parent-teacher meeting, well, actually it was a parent-teacher conference or whatever, and we had a meeting, and the kids came in and performed and everything, but we had 100% attendance.
Some say giving aid to less developed countries can be counterproductive, but Sherry says loving one by one is different.
The ladies are learning how to do various crafts, various things that they can earn their own money. So we just brought back home their little scrubbies. We'll show a picture of them, and they're little scrubbies that the ladies had crocheted, and I sold out within 36 hours of posting it on the internet. We sold 220 sets of these of the scrubbies that the ladies have made. So the day we presented them all with their money was such a fun day. We're not only working with the children, we're working with the entire family, and we have made, I can't say we have, I'm going to say God has made such an impact in this village that we're in and the surrounding villages. My husband and I, we built a home a couple years ago. When my parents had passed away, they left me a small inheritance, and we took that money and put it into building a home, which we also use as guest housing for the people who come.
Sherry and Ken were now spending 6 months out of the year in Uganda. On top of that, bringing groups of 12 to 15 to volunteer, working in traveling medical camps, orphanages, and in the schools.
And we go into a slum or a rural village, and we will set up a traveling medical camp, and people will come. We don't even need to advertise. I mean, they see us coming, our bus coming, and they know this is the time they're coming, and we will see anywhere. Our largest clinic was 1,300 people in one day. And we'll see on an average maybe 800 people in a day, and our doctors will treat them. We have a full-on pharmacy.
To date, the medical group has done more than 300 surgeries.
This 6,000 square foot medical clinic that we're building, it kept getting bigger and bigger as we were building. I'm not sure how it got to be so big, but it's more like a hospital now. We'll have 8 beds for those that need to be staying longer. We'll do deliveries. We won't be doing any C-sections or any major surgeries, but we'll be able to treat the typhoid, the malaria, the common illnesses that are so prevalent in our poor village and the villages around us.
The plan is to open New Hope Medical Clinic in 2018. Part of the mission work is also to spread the word. Sherry says she owes God for everything that she has, and she wants to continue to share his teachings with the world.
We are excited about right now. We have 2 pastors from Wisconsin, and they're coming, and they've devoted 2 years to teaching our local pastors how to be better pastors. Possibly next building will be a combination community center / pastor school, because we're in just the early stages of these 2 weeks, 2 years of training, and it's really been helping these pastors. We keep hearing great stories. Wow, I never know what my goal is. That's the thing. Just when we finish one thing, God somehow miraculously lays on our hearts something else. I do know one, okay, I should take this back. I'll take it back. We do have a goal. Our goal is, instead of giving a hand out, we want to give a hand up. Another highlight we have is we have people that come on our mission trip and they want to rededicate their life to Jesus. And so we do a baptism in the Nile River, which is pretty cool. So we always take a boat ride on the Nile River. I always say if you take the motor off, that's like, I think Jesus might have been on these boats, these old wooden boats, but this one has a motor on it. And so we generally will have anywhere from a couple of people wanting to be baptized in the Nile. And Ken one time got it. He says, you know, your mother built the churches and we're building the missionaries. By the people coming with us and seeing what we're doing and working alongside of us, we've had many people go into full-time mission work from coming on our mission trips. So she built the churches, we're building the missionaries.
Loving One by One Ministries purchased 11 acres of land to better meet the needs of the children and residents in the surrounding villages and called it Graceland. A new and bigger school was built to accommodate the growing number of students coming their way. And Sherry is proud to say that Graceland is green and uses water from its own well. Sherry's goal is clear: to continue her mission to serve children and families in Uganda by bringing Christ-inspired physical, spiritual, and educational changes into their lives. For Faces of Torrance, I'm your host, Jesse Pierre, speaking to ordinary people doing extraordinary things.